Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Let us continue reading this radical feminist book so that we can know, as Muslim women and as Muslim individuals, how to navigate a conversation with someone who thinks like this. Because this ideology is being taught in university, okay? And it's being transmitted through TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It is a philosophy that permeates in Silicon Valley, which has an influence on a lot of countries without them even realizing it, because social media is a powerful tool. So, if you want to defeat something, you must study it, so that you may, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, formulate a corrective strategy. Let's begin. She was ranting about how women have to care for men and boys. So let's continue. To bear and raise children, and to take only a decorative role in public life unless they happen to be a hereditary monarch. A decorative role? Well, public life. She could mean also, I think, in politics, government, and whatnot. But public life can be influenced without having a job in a bureaucratic institution. I like to imagine one of my goals, for example, is me in a park talking about Islam with the neighborhood children and being able to visit the hoods as the nuns used to visit the orphanages in Italy in the 14th century and whatnot, that I would go and visit those areas and give dawah to the young children. That's a way of influencing public life without being employed in a mayor's office. You see what I'm saying? How you contribute to the public affairs is quite dynamic. The earliest political theorists explicitly excluded women and children from the social contract that is the foundation of modern statehood. The economic and social structures of every modern culture were built on the bones of those assumptions. All of us were born and raised into those structures. The social contract includes every citizen, because every citizen is born on the motherland's terrain. So the social contract is not just upon men only, but it's bounded upon all citizens. All citizens. But over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries, something changed. Advances in medical science meant that, for the first time in human history, women were able to reliably control their own fertility. Okay, so she's talking about birth control. You know, I didn't use birth control very much in my life, but if you want birth control, stop sleeping with random people. And birth control is pushed on girls to cure their acne, but it does change. I saw some studies, some people can go look it up, about how birth control influences what kind of partner you choose and how women change how they feel about their partner once they're off birth control. And there are side effects to birth control as well. There are some women who contend that they used it for years and it affected their fertility. Then when they wanted to get pregnant, they couldn't. Some complained of weight gain, hormonal imbalances. There's so many side effects to even the Depo shot. Causes spotting. It's really annoying. It's not very healthy. So yeah, birth control allows you to what? Sleep with the Joe Schmo. If you can't acknowledge that, you should be seeking a healthy partner, then that shows that you got some underlying issue that you're trying to get out with each person you sleep with. It's bizarre that you have to cut off your emotions as a woman, have this kind of alienated intimacy with a stranger who you met on an app. You let them use you and you use them, and then they just block you on Instagram after, and then you gotta go make sure you didn't get an STD. How is that empowering? And don't, they always try to switch it to be like, what if it's a woman who has 8 kids and doesn't want any more? You only can get pregnant, I think, 5 days out of the month. Alright? When you're ovulating. You don't really need birth control. I remember When after I just had my baby, the doctors kept trying to push birth control on me. It's like eugenics. And I was like, no, I don't want any birth control. And they're like, condoms? This? I'm like, no. I'm married. If I get another child, I get another child. All my pregnancies were planned. It's really not hard to not get pregnant. And if you get pregnant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you with a child. You opened your legs as a woman. You were gifted the opportunity to become a mother again, or for the first time. Accept it. Just accept it. We know how babies are made. If you look at intimacy with a more mature lens of, I'm going to have intimacy with this person, because remember, a man has 3 options with you. I've heard this said by many others. He either is going to take care of the child and marry you, he's going to abandon the child, or he's going to have you get an abortion. Those are the 3 options. So he can raise the child, abandon the child, or have the child executed via abortion. That's the 3 options. You as a woman, every time you open your legs, you know you got those 3 options. And if you know he ain't going to stay with you, you are condemning your child to death or to abandonment, and you're a bad person. I don't have to say, you're so empowered and, you slept with 50 dudes this month and you know what, you're a hero. You're not. The women, to my mind, who are heroes are those who preserve their body and don't allow easy access, and who care about the kind of father they're going to give to their children. That is a huge thing that leads so many of us young ones astray when we were young, is this kind of hoochie lifestyle that men actually hate. They call it the Madonna whore complex, where a man wants to have his virgin wife, but he wants her to be naughty, and he cheats on his good woman with a degenerate woman, and it's caused the problems throughout history. This is true. But one is respected more, and one is respected less. One is protected more, and one is protected less. And you can't nag men and brainwash them into going against their natural fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detests fornication and adultery, and we are told to not act like that. And if we are more honest with ourselves as women and not led astray by these feminists, we won't necessarily need birth control, and we'll look at intimacy in a more respectable and spiritual way. Instead of some occultic, hedonistic ritual, we'll look at it as a special opportunity to facilitate life for more Muslims. Safe medical abortion and advances in contraceptive technology meant that women and girls could, in theory, decide when and if they had children. See how she sneaks her if they had children? Which meant that the stakes of human sexuality and society changed forever. It meant that it was no longer so easy to keep women and girls shamed into sexual compliance. Okay, right here. So for her, she's contending that birth control allowed women to be more sleazy with more acceptance. Because it's true that in American households, a lot of the girls are told when they get their period to be put on birth control so they don't get pregnant. So your parents are literally telling you, you can sleep around, just don't get pregnant. And so they demonize being a mother, but don't demonize being a slut. And that is true. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'll give you an example. One of my younger brothers, one of my parents gave him a huge box of condoms because he admitted that he was now being sexually active. And that parent told him that he better be safe and not come home with a baby. So they gave him a big box of condoms, and they put their hands in the air and felt like there ain't not much you can do for a teenage boy. So the teens are taught from a very young age, just use birth control and it's all okay. Just use rubbers and it's all okay. Instead of, no, you need to be finding a wife, a husband, keep yourself pure, keep yourself noble, stay in virtue, resist lust, Manage your emotions, manage your hormones. Don't be a base, primal perv. Try to do your best. Watch out for diseases. You know, they don't teach you that. It's, here's some pills and rubbers, have at it. Which is very, very bad advice, because you don't know what psychological problems come from each relationship. And becoming dead as a woman by hooking up with all these different men, it really just makes you depressed towards men, because you start to see them as these disgusting pigs who should be taken advantage of. And then when you want to have a father, you always have these doubts and suspicions looming in your head because of all the different dark sides of men's aspects of life you've seen. True, you don't want to be naive to the nature of men so you can protect your heart, but you also don't want to be heavily cynical and nihilistic, because without hope, you know, you can get quite depressed. So the shame has a twofold aspect. You need to, like, I'm raising my daughters to be different than how I was taught, different how my mom was taught, right? To be different. And it's painful, but I have told my daughters, be better than all the women in our family. Be the chain of strength. Fix the family lineage. Steer us to the right track. Don't be like these loose women. Good men are for good women, and bad women are for bad men. Saying it in a very simple tone for them to understand. It's very important that we keep that shame there. Things happen. Like, I understand in the past there were women who they fell to the power of lust, got pregnant. Like my grandma. She was married, I believe, to my uncle's dad. She went to a concert. There was a Native American drummer. She had intimacy with him, got pregnant with my mom. And my mom was the bastard child, a mixed race bastard child. And there was a stigma around that, naturally, because she wasn't married to that individual and wasn't trying to get married to him. And there were times my grandma would say to my mom, I wish I would have aborted you. And my grandma was not a good mother at all to my mom. And that caused my mom to be psychologically broken and go into the sex industry. And it's a long story. So I understand how the shame of sex can cause problem for the child who is conceived in that manner. But I'd argue that a mother should never resent her child, even if the world resents her and her child. You should always say, yes, I did this sin, but I'll never turn against my own baby. And I'd rather lose society than lose my child's love. Because it's you and your child against the world. That's how I see it, anyway. And dependent on marriage. See how she talks negative about marriage? Is that marriage makes you dependent. It also keeps you safe. Keeps you safe if your marriage is done healthily. We need to help people stay married. We need to help people have healthy marriages. We need to get people married and understand the responsibilities that come with that. I used to not understand marriage until I became a Muslim. Before, I used to see marriage as just a contract of the tax code with the United States government. I didn't see anything special about it. But when you see it as a spiritual contract that you're going to bind yourself to this person in this world, and when you stand on Judgment Day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge you how good of a wife you were to him, that changes everything. It changes everything. Joe Rogan says all the time that marriage is just a piece of paper, and that mantra, when I was an atheist, stuck in my head. Now that I've stopped listening to Joe Rogan, studying more about Islam, I realize he's full of nonsense. And he talks like that while he has a woman, and he's a porn addict, and a heavy drinker, a smoker, and a pothead, and does DMT. And I realized, why am I taking marriage advice from somebody who thinks marriage is just a piece of paper? What on earth? In masculinity, obviously, is going to have a branch of study that deals with marriage, because a man must maintain his marriage and try his best, right? If you see a masculine man in a healthy marriage, you're like, he's crushing, he's a legend. And if he's a young male who's single but he's looking, he can still be doing well at life. But a healthy man who's married just has more potency, because it gives you something to look up to when you're a child. It's like, oh, I want to have a marriage like that. It gives you hope. If you only see divorce and prostitution around you, it's very bleak. The consequences of this technological shift have been profound, and we have only begun to cope with them. Today, despite the devastating impact of pandemics and recessions on women's employment, there are more women and queer people in the traditional male workplace. Queer is the stupidest term I ever. Why do you have to always make everything about like this very niche identity? It's so weird. This sexual expression is just bizarre. More women and queer people making art, making laws, making history. Meanwhile, the once fundamental social structures of family and faith are falling apart. See how gleeful she is? The fundamental structures of family and faith are falling apart. Do you see what she did here? She says, well, queer people and women, well, they're doing okay. Meanwhile, the ones fundamental social structures of family and faith are falling apart. You can see the condescending evilness here. This is very important, because she's gleeful that base of society, the fundamental aspect, is falling apart. Faith, which has heterosexuality at its core, is falling apart. She's happy about that. It's not a conspiracy, and it's not a lie to take their literature and say, look, this is what they're writing about. This is their goal. And that's why Muslim women have to explain why they like their marriage, why they like the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for us. Is so not effective if you see a Muslim man, telling an uncovered Muslim woman why she should cover. There's a good point to it, but the feminists will always frame it with the propaganda of, look, a straight man shames free woman. But if a woman who is covered and has left that European and American hedonism behind, that is a different arrow in the bin. We have to defend our faith. And when you have people here like this person happy that religion is under assault, we have a problem. That's why Christians and Muslims must defend their faith. More and more women and girls are boycotting marriage and motherhood. Look at that, how happy she is. Look at that. She wants everyone single, childless, sterile, infertile, alone, at work in a cubicle, pushing papers, hooking up with random strangers who could give her diseases and could care less if she got hit by a bus 20 minutes later. She's a 7-Eleven open for anyone at any time. Don't boycott marriage. Don't boycott motherhood. My life without my children would have no purpose. I wouldn't want to be here without my kids. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect my children and bless all the Muslim mothers who adore being moms. That's why I have a motherhood playlist. It's super important that Muslim women talk about motherhood. Too many Muslim women online are talking about sex instead of motherhood, the joys of it. The teens, they need to hear the loving side of it. Feminists like this are poisoning the minds of literally millions of girls. And so we must take it back. The feminists have easy targets of the Christian women. They always targeting them. It won't be long before they come for us, because they hate our modesty. They hate that we let men have multiple wives. They hate that we want to have strong men who are masculine and heterosexual. They hate our white Muslim brothers. They hate our elders because she makes fun of old men in here making choices in a patriarchal system. Everything she's hating here in this book is found in the Sharia. We must defend our faith. We must defend the religion of Islam. Tell the young girls why motherhood is great. Find ways to help them feel safe and confident in the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. That's why I speak on motherhood so much. I unfortunately have a majority male audience, over 80%. Small percent is women. So I don't have a huge influence with women, but I'm sure there's channels who do, and they should focus some time on that affair. There's a lot of Muslim men talking about how to find a wife and whatnot, but there isn't very much Muslim women content about motherhood specifically and the joys of it. So we have to do that. By the way, if you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. I hope to see you there, and I'll link it in the comments section as always. Take care.